At the time of writing this, my first Writing Religions video has been up for like a whole day, and I haven't gotten any angry comments, which honestly surprises me. Let's see if I can piss off any religious folks with this video. Let's talk about some questions you should ask when making your fantasy religion. This is actually 3 questions in one. Who's the god, who manages the religion, and who are the followers? So question 1, the god. Who is the god? Do you have one god or a whole pantheon? If you have a pantheon, what does the power structure look like? What does each god reign over and why? Are they all equals? Is there a ruler god? Is it a small pantheon with like 4 gods or a massive one like the Hindu pantheon? The upside of a small pantheon is your readers and characters can become intimately familiar with each god. The upside of a large pantheon is you can add gods as needed. Or is there one god? And if that's the case, what does their power look like? Are they like the Abrahamic God and all-powerful omniscient? Or is there one God with limited power? Or is there just one God left? And all this is assuming there even is a God. Do the gods the people of your world worship even exist? Do you have more than one religion? If you decide every god of every religion exists, that could cause fun conflict, or you could have one religion be the confirmed wrong one, which would cause a whole other type of conflict. And religious themselves don't need gods. They can be non-theistic. The focus could be more on spirits, ancestors, magic, monsters, nature, or something else that's more relevant to the world you're creating. But that is the most important thing. Whatever supernatural element you include, be it God or something else, should help mirror what's important to your world's society and culture. Hey! I interrupt this video to tell you about my book, Phantoms of the Inferno, an epic high fantasy with espionage, evil kings, mass extinction events, and shady magical conspiracies. If that sounds interesting, go read Phantoms of the Inferno on Scribblehub and Wattpad. Book 1 is up, and keep an eye out for announcements because Book 2 will start uploading later this year. As for my next question, who manages the religion? I'm talking nuns, monks, priests, preachers, rabbis, shamans, religious leaders, and workers. Basically, who are the people working in your religion? You can either steal a pre-existing structure from a pre-existing religion, or you can make your own. And what are the jobs of religious workers? Who leads, who organizes, spreads the good word, converts more followers, keeps track of religious texts or relics, upkeeps religious sites, takes care of the gods? Is one person in charge of everything, or is it a whole team with a power structure? Is it a heretical power structure with a clear-cut ruler, or is it more workplace culture with a boss, but also with employees who can tell the boss, that's not in my job description? And what does employment under the church mean? Is it a lifelong commitment? Can they be fired? Do workers get paid? Do they get housing? Do they get to choose to work for the church? Or is it a duty forced upon them? And what jobs are seen as too lowly for people working in the church? Do they get contractors not associated with the church or volunteers to scrub the toilets?
Toilet?
And last question, who are the worshipers? Who is the congregation? Is there a diverse group of worshipers, or do they all look alike? In my world, I have 5 magical races and 5 religions, since each magical race wanted to be the chosen people. And if you have different fantasy creatures, like elves and orcs, do they worship the same god? Are they allowed to worship together? Or is your church exclusive and forbids certain people from being a part of the religion? If so, why is that? Are there certain requirements people have to meet to become part of the congregation, like baptism? Or if you're dealing with a predatory religion, maybe they only allow women or children or financially unstable, the disabled, the very old into their congregation because separating them will make them easier to manipulate. This is getting away from me. You do not need to answer most of these questions. They're fun to ponder and could be important to your story, but if you make a story without answering most of these, that's fine too. The big question here are probably the gods and followers. Is there a god? If yes, who? Are any of your important characters members of the religion? That's your important who's who. On to the next question. What happens after we die? That's actually two questions in one. What happens to me? Like, my mind, the 8-pound slab of meat firing off electricity in here. What happens to me after we die? Does your religion have an afterlife? If not, how? Because dying is scary. A big aim of religion is to guide people and alleviate fear. So how do you make death less scary? If you have undead creatures like zombies, vampires, and ghosts in your story, that could help. Or if a god is a character in your story, they could help. Do they know what happens after death? Do they live in the afterlife, or is that not their domain? If you do have an afterlife, what does it look like? Do spirits roam the earth? Do they watch over their descendants? Or is there a heaven? If there is, who gets to go there? Is there a hell to match heaven, or is there not a cosmic punishment? If no punishment, what happens to the people who don't earn heaven? Or is the afterlife even earned? If you could be another plane of existence, no more earned than our time here on Earth.
Heaven.
And if you're writing a story about living characters, the real question will be, how does the idea of the next life affect them? Do they have to act a certain way to earn heaven? Are they scared to act the wrong and end up in hell? Or do they not care because we all end up in the giant wheat field in the sky?
This is gluten-free, right?
And as for the other side of this question, what happens to the body? Religions all around the world insert themselves into birth and death. Sometimes there are things you need to do before you die, like last rites with Catholics. Sometimes you need special ceremonies when you're born, like baptisms. And sometimes you need special burials, either with a funeral mass, cremation, or mummification. What burial customs does your religion dictate? Be it burial, cremation, mummification, taxidermy, burial at sea, or something else? Do religious leaders and prayer need to be involved? Or is it more about specific relics, shrines, and texts being involved than specific people? Is there a time frame for everything happening? What taboos are there around handling the dead? Do they do these particular burial practices because it's what God wants, or because it's something that people did that made the most sense for where they are in their world? A person living on a glacier won't be able to bury a body the same way other people do. And that actually leads me into my next question. Another two questions in one. With this question, you want to ask where the religion is located geographically and where people worship. Where is the geographical epicenter of your religion? I said in my last religious video that people not living near the ocean aren't likely to worship an ocean god. I phrased that very weird. People living near a volcano will worship it and try to appease the god associated with it. People who live in the Arctic environments might worship the snow, or if there are people inland who worship the sea god, why is that? How did that happen? In a different world, Poseidon had a huge following along the Great Lakes. Or is it geography somewhere else in the religion playing a role on people who don't live there?
Where are we? Paris.
Where is the geographical epicenter of your religion? That means either where it was founded and or where the big holy site is. Think, where in your world does the god live? Or the highest holy worker? Or where's the crater where the magical asteroid that was the catalyst for the whole religion hit? Or do you not have an epicenter for your religion? Is the epicenter dry, wet, hot, cold, underground, in the sky? Is it like the Abrahamic religions, and many religious bodies claim to hold reverence for a relatively small geographical area, and that causes conflict?
You're different, and I don't like you!
These are good to know because geography and weather affect every aspect of life. They'll affect what people wear, eat, what animals are around them. Going back to the Abrahamic religions, women from all three religions have head coverings associated with them. Some Jewish women wear kisui rashes, Christian nuns wear cornets or veils, and Muslim women wear hijabs. And ignoring it's the fashion God likes of it all, it makes sense to wear these for the geographical epicenter of each religion. Israel is a desert country. About 60% of it is desert or semi-arid, so it makes sense to wrap up your hair so it doesn't dry out while also protecting your scalp, ears, and neck. And the rest of the outfits they typically wear are long sleeves and loose. and they're so helpful in dry, hot environments to help protect your skin from the sun and dust, but keeping the clothes loose helps create a breeze. So what do the people of your religion wear and why? If they're in a colder climate, thicker fur-lined clothes will be their more devout clothes. If they're in a tropical climate, they may focus less on the cloth of it all and more on the accessories like beads and jewelry. And that's just the clothes. What animals live near the epicenter? Are they venomous or poisonous or fine to eat? What does the changing of the seasons look like? What is rare but not unheard of near the epicenter? If traders regularly bring in, say, amethyst to the epicenter, it might become a holy stone because it's seen as rarer. All of these questions are worth thinking about because geography and history will affect your religion sometimes more than a living God will.
Where are we? Paris.
As for the next question, where do people worship? Does your religion have churches, temples, synagogues, mosques, or some other specific location dedicated for prayer? If they do, what does it look like? Is the building only for prayer, or do people get more than one use out of it? Can religious workers live there? Can they perform charity there? Can they use it for school? How intertwined with nature are the churches? What's in the church to help honor the God they worship? And what does prayer in the church look like? Is it prayer or meditation or chanting or celebrations? Is it a large space or a small space? Or is your religion widespread enough that churches look vastly different in different places? For this one, I would just look up what different buildings, not necessarily churches, but buildings and architecture look like around the world. Some buildings are on stilts. Some buildings are also massive statues. There's the pyramids, the Taj Mahal, the Paris catacombs, the walled city of Kowloon, and all sorts of other insane buildings that you can draw inspiration from when designing your churches. And that's all assuming your religion has a church or any dedicated worship site. The followers could just pray at home or visit shrines or statues or go to specific spots in nature to worship their God instead. Again, two big questions here. When does the religion say existence began, and when did the religion itself begin? Most religions have some sort of creation myth, and myth and storytelling as a whole are really important to religion. They're used to explain why the world looks the way it does, reinforce social structures or oppression, explain natural disasters or human history, and reinforce the power of God and the religion by attributing that all cool things are thanks to God. You don't necessarily need a creation myth for your religion, or if you make one, it doesn't need to end up in your story, but you should come up with a handful of myths founded in your religion that can help explain how your world works, how your characters act, and why, even if they don't necessarily believe in those myths. If they're prevalent enough, they'll still impact your characters. A good example are those figurine villages people put up around Christmas time. They were originally inspired by the manger scene people would put up. I'm not religion, and yet here I am, letting the story of Jesus' birth impact a big chunk of my living room for like a quarter of the year. As for the other question, how old is your religion? Is the religion old and well established? Has it survived the test of time? If it is old, how has it evolved and changed? What dark secrets might it have in its past? What's been the God's response to those changes? Or is it a newer religion that's still being challenged? If it's a new religion, but it has a real God associated with it, what's the story there? Is it a new religion for an old God? Are gods in your world born or created? And what was the catalyst for the religion and possibly God coming into being? Again, these are not questions you necessarily need to answer or include in your story, but answering them will help your religion feel more fleshed out and your world feel more immersive. Why do we suffer? One question, but two ways to come about it. One way is philosophical. What is the nature of suffering? How do we reduce it? Why do we suffer at all? These are questions entrenched in Buddhism and a lot of Eastern religions, Taoism and Confucianism. also put a lot of emphasis on philosophy. If your religion is less about the God or the worship or the afterlife, it could be about the philosophy, asking why and dictating how people live their lives. The other question is one I came about when I was writing a story, not Phantoms of the Inferno, where I had several gods who were characters. I had to make characters suffer, but when God is your personal friend, that raises the question of why. Why wouldn't your friend just help you out? Why would they let that happen to you? Why would they maybe choose to make that happen to you? If God is a character in your world, this is a question worth asking. Why does your God let people suffer? Is it for the same reason we sometimes don't pick up a crying child? Because a little hardship is good for us? Or is it maybe more broad than that, like a vaccine for the population? A few must suffer for the well-being of the masses as a whole? Or does your God simply not concern themselves with mortal suffering? Or is the suffering out of their control? It's a hard question to answer regardless of which way you're coming about it, but it's worth asking in your story to make your God more compelling, flesh out your religion, and establish what might or might not be okay. When does your God say enough is enough and deus ex machina? How do people worship in your religion? This question kind of encompasses every other question I've asked up until now, because where they worship, when, what they wear, who they talk to, what they believe, the stories they tell, the food they cook, how they marry, give birth, and die can all be done as a form of worship, or none of it can. Sometimes you make bacon as a sign of gratitude and reverence for the God of bacon. Sometimes you make bacon in spite of God, and sometimes you just want to make bacon because it tastes good. I have Village Inn bacon in my fridge right now. Bacon. So how do people in your world worship? How much of their life is dictated by God? How much of their life does a God even want to be a part of? And during times of dedicated worship, what do they do? Do they make a bonfire? Do they light candles or incense? Do they confess their sins? Do they pray or meditate or sing or dance or chant? Do they have statues they worship at? Do they have totems or beads or bodies they worship with? And for clarity, I say bodies and I think mummy, but maybe sex is a pivotal part of worship in your religion. Why not? You gotta get on Aphrodite's good side somehow.
Ain't you never seen a naked chick riding a clam before?
And how long does worship last? Do people do dedicated worshiping regularly at a set time and place on a specific schedule? Or is it more spontaneous when the god happens to show up? Or when more than 3 members of their religion are in one place? And what about when they need to worship? This praying during natural disasters. What do they do then? Do they pray over their dying loved ones or bring totems to watch over them? Bring herbs or oils that are seen as holy? Or do they see their darkest hour as times when God cannot or will not be there, so they don't pray? And what does prayer even look like? Do they pray in a specific language like Hebrew or a common language? Are there specific prayers they're supposed to say, or is it whatever they come up with in the moment? I feel like this is actually a question you have to answer if you're going to have religion in your story. It goes back to an old saying, there are no atheists in a foxhole. When you make your characters suffer, and you should make them suffer, God will be there, regardless of if God is real or not, a character or not, there physically or not. In our lowest moments, we often look to forces greater than ourselves for guidance, or just the will to persevere. What is the greater force compelling your characters forward, and will it leave that foxhole with them? So when doing research for this video, I came across 2 questions you should ask that don't fit nicely into this video's format, so I'm sticking them here. Question 1. What do you do with non-believers in your story? Are there non-believers? What does the religious folks think of them? In my story with gods as characters, I try to address atheists not as people who don't believe in God existence, but as people who have seen what God's selling and said, thanks, but no, and choose not to live their life dictated by a God. The next question, how do you name your religion? This one goes back to Phantoms of the Inferno. When I was making my religion, I at first gave them and my magical races really lazy names. Think the people who talk to animals are called naturalists, and because they believe in reincarnation, their religion is reincarnationism. And then I decided that was lazy, found the word meteorologician, and that rewired something in my brain, and I went digging. Instead, the people who are all about reincarnation became Avatus, based on the word avatar, which for all that I love the show, it did not click with me that the word basically means reincarnation or born into another body until I went down the root words rabbit hole. I also named another religion Kushamis, which came from the name Kushem, which is one of the first ever recorded names, and Genos, which I got from the scientific name for roses. And I am able to tell you this because, and if you take away one thing from this video, let this be it, I wrote down where I got my names for all of them. If you are coming up with fantasy worlds or names, write down where you found them or got the inspiration for them, because you will want to go back and you will have forgotten because it's so much to remember. Seriously, do it right now. Finish this video later. Don't go. Write it down where your inspirations are from now. You will not remember.
I'm a writer.
Alright, outros. Religion is complicated. There's no right or wrong way to make one because there's no right or wrong way to worship. Just make sure you make a strong foundation for your religion so your ideas don't fail all over the place when you're putting them down on paper. If there are gaping holes and inconsistencies in your religion, you want them to be there on purpose so your characters are the ones losing immersion in their faith and it's not your readers losing immersion in your story. And find inspiration in the real world. God knows there's plenty of it. And also go out and read and write. Cremation, mummification, taxidermy,